Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to import your sprites for your inventory and store. So, like for mine, I created a background sprite for both the inventory and the store. Scroll over here, so I have my store background, and then I created these four store items, and I named them health item, meta item, sword item, and bow item. And then we want to place all these on, or actually, yeah, we want to place these all on their own separate layers. So I came up here and I created a store layer and an inventory layer. It doesn't matter which one of these two are on top, as long as it's below the GUI and above everything else. Okay, so down here I have my equipped spot, and then I have my my inventory slots. You can have as many as you want, but for this tutorial, I only did the three and then the one equipped spot. You might want to have your main hand or your main weapon equipped slot, or you want to have your secondary. But I'm not going to do that here. All you have to do is pretty much you can just copy what we did in our equip spot, and then duplicate it and then make a secondary and set that one up. It's going to be very simple. Okay, now we want to go into our equipped slot and hit edit object. Okay, so when it's empty, it's going to show this empty animation. And now when we equip the sword or the bow, it's going to show one or the other. Now, it's important that you name your animations. Like this one is empty. Actually, let's go ahead and use lowercase for that one. Okay, and then for animation one, which is this one, the sword, we type sword, and then for number two, we hit bow. That's going to come in handy later. Then we want to go to the inventory slide and do the same thing. Edit object. As you can see, I have the empty. Change that again. Okay, and then I named this first animation health, second mana, third sword, fourth bow. Okay, then after that you want to come to edit points. You want to create a new custom point, and you do that by pressing the plus, and then in the field right here, I named it slot text, because we're gonna what we're gonna do, we're gonna mount, or we're gonna mount a text object to this inventory slot at that point. So what you do is you want to set the X and Y coordinates. So as you can see, I set it to X4, it's 4 pixels from the corner right here, and Y is 18. It's 18 pixels from the top, counting down. Then you hit close. Well, actually, before we say that, this is correct for this specific sprite. This sprite is 16 by 16, so if you have, let's say you use 64 by 64, you want to set up a point to where that's right for that sprite. So if you're doing like with mine, the 32 by 32, this should be fine if it's a square item. So if you, like I said, once again, if you have a bigger item, 128 by 128 or whatever, you want to try to uh, set that point up according to that particular sprite. Okay, now you hit apply. Now we want to make sure we have two variables for all of our items. So let's go ahead and look at that. You want to have the name variable. You want to set that name to whatever that item is. This is health, and then quantity. If you want that to be just one when the player clicks on it and buys it, or 5, 10, whatever. You want all your store items to have that. Now, I'm not going to add like the cost or anything. Like say you want to set it up to where it's going to cost like 500. Um, you can also put that in here, but I'm not going to do that. When we click on this, it's just going to use these two. Okay. So, and then the next thing, you want to make sure you have a text object. As you can see, I named it slot text. Let's edit it. Now, like once again, I set this for my inventory slot. So the size is at 12, and I did the color yellow. And like I said, I named it slot text. I set the value to 0. You press apply, and that is it for this part of it. Now we will set up the game logic. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the events. And as you can see, I've created 3 new groups. One's called store, inventory, and add item. Let's go ahead and start with the store. Okay, in this section, this is going to allow us to hide and show the store layer. Now I tried doing it a different way using the object variables, but for some reason they didn't want to do it. So after messing around with it, tinkering and everything, I found this is the way that we can do this. So basically, okay, so this first condition, we're checking to see if the E key is released, and the second one, we're checking on collision. To do collisions, you go to uh, the common conditions for all objects, then collision, and then you put your 2 objects over here. In this case, it's going to be the player and the store door. And these two are true. We come over here. We want to add an action, and now we want to create or modify. We want to create and modify a scene variable. So you go to variables, value of a variable. Remember, if you go over here to common action for all objects and go to that variable, that's for object variables. Okay, so to create a scene variable, you come over here to this button right here, press the plus, and then you add a new variable. So this variable is called eRel, and this is short for e released. You can name it whatever you want, but in this case, I just named it eRel. Leave the value blank for now. Press apply. Okay, now over here, you want to go equals to value of 1. So if these two are come back as true, we set the scene variable to 1. Then after that, we jump over here. We do a sub event under this. So then we want to check 2 more conditions. We want to see if the layer is visible. So basically, you just come down to layers and camera and visibility of a layer, and then you type in the layer that you want to check. In this case, it's store. Make sure you have the quotes, or it won't work. It'll throw an error. Okay, so we want to check if that store layer is visible, and if this scene variable is equal to 1. If it is, we jump over here, and then we add action, and we go back to layers and cameras, and we want to hide the layer. And same thing, you type the layer that you want to hide, and then we set this back to 0. Okay, so if this is not true, it's going to jump down here. So that means that we want to check to see if it's not visible. So come back over here, and the only thing I did with this one is I inverted it. Okay, so we check to see if that store layer is not visible, and we also want to check to see if this eRel scene variable is equal to 1. If these are true, then we pop over here, and same thing is up here, except for we want to show the layer. This one we hid the layer, this one we showed the layer, and set that variable to 0. Okay, let's go ahead and close this one. Open inventory. Okay, so the very first thing we want to do is we want to do a condition of at the beginning of the scene, and then for the action we want to create another scene variable. Okay, so the scene variable we want to create is slot ID, and we want to set it to 0. And once again, to create a scene variable, we want to come over here, press the plus, and rename this to slot ID, and set the value to 0. Or you can just leave that blank and set it over here. Okay, and so this is mainly going to be used for when we're saving and loading, our inventory items. So let's go ahead and close this, expand this. All right. So after we set that one, we want to do a sub event, and there's going to be no conditions. So let's go ahead and delete this, and we want to come up here and do for each object. Okay, and so once you have this little white bar, click on that white bar. There we go, and click right here on top, and you want to put which object you want to repeat this for. So in our case, we want to repeat it for the inventory slot. So repeat for each inventory slot object. So for each inventory slot we have, it's going to do all of this. So if we go back to the game, you see we have 3 slots. So it's going to do it 3 times. So each slot, it's going to do these right here. The first thing we want to create an object variable. So we're going to come down here, we're going to modify the text of a variable of an object. The object is going to be inventory slot, and we want to create a variable called item name. And you can, just like the scene variable, you can come here and you can add this variable to this object. For this object, we want to set it to empty quotation marks. We want to leave that blank. Yeah, so later on we're gonna feed information to this. We're gonna grab the name of the object and set it right here later. Okay. Second thing we want to do, we want to create an object. So if you remember, we created a special point or custom point in for the inventory slot. So this is where that's going to come in handy. So to get these positions, let's go ahead and delete this. Well, first of all, we want to tell it we want to create this slot text, and then we want to create it at these 2 positions. So we go to this expression button right here. We go common expression for objects, for all objects. We go position and X position. Select the object you want, inventory slot. Okay, so we got the first part of it, but we don't want to create it at its X position. We want to create it at that point. So we add the word point right before the X. Keep the X though, and then within these parentheses, we type slot text. That's the name of the point that we created. Now you could have named it like 1, 2, or 0.1, 0.2, whatever, but I named it slot text to keep it simple and allows me to remember what I wanted to set at that point. And in this case, we wanted to set that slot text. Okay, and then you do the same thing for Y, and then we want to create on the inventory layer. Like I said, once again, make sure you have these quotes. Okay. Next thing you want to do is we want to set the Z order. Okay, so actually before you come here, you want to see what number you want to set right there, like which what uh, what 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 order everything else is, and you want to set this number above that. So there's a couple ways you can do it. So go back to game. If you did not lock this, you can simply just click on it, and you can get that Z order from here. But if you locked it, you won't be able to get this information from the property. So what you have to do is you have to come over here to the list of instances and find these inventory slots. So just grab this little bar right here until you scroll down and find your inventory slots. Okay, inventory slots. Okay, and right here it tells you, X, Y, the angle, the layer, and of course the Z order. And let me see, looks like they're 144 through 146. All right, so as long as the number that you put over there in the action is higher than these, you'll be fine. But to, to stay on the safe side, I went ahead and set it at 200. So we definitely know that this is going to show above the inventory slot. Okay, so we click on here. We put the object that we want to modify the Z order of and set it to value of 200. And all you gotta do is you go to common action for all objects, and then you click on Z order, and then get you this. Okay. Next thing you're gonna do, we want to link the slot text to inventory slot. So each slot text that are created, it's going to link one of those to an inventory slot. So it'll do it 3 times. And for that, all you do is just you can search for link to objects right there, and you put your first object, slot text. We want to link it to the inventory slot. All right, and the last thing you want to do, this is where we're going to deal with the slot ID. This is going to assign an ID for each slot. So it's going to say, okay, this one's going to be 1, this one's going to be 2, and this one's going to be 3. So all we did here was we just modified the scene variable, and instead of setting this set 2 or equal, we said we want to add 1. So for each one, it's going to keep adding 1. So the first one is going to say, okay, it's at 0, add 1. Second one, it's at 1, add 2. So that's going to be, the second box is going to be number 2, and then same thing for 3. Very simple. Okay. Now the last step we want to do is we want to do repeat for each slot object. So we go back up here again, and we choose for each object, and you'll get this bar again, and click on the bar again and put slot text. So pretty much we're repeating this, except for it's going to be for a slot text object. Okay, now we want this basically is going to update the the slot text object, or all the slot text objects. So if it changes, it's going to update it. It's going to update the value. So if it's at 0 and you add an object or an item to that slot, this is going to update that display. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take objects linked in the object into account. And so we once again we can type that over here, take into account linked objects, and put the two objects, slot text and inventory slot. And like I said, it's just going to keep updating those two objects. And then the next thing you want to do is we want to modify the text. So you selected text object you want to update, which we only have one right now, so it's the slot text. We want to set that to, now we want to get the inventory count. So let's go ahead and delete this. I'll show you how to get this. So what you want to do is you want to go up to conversion, number greater than text, expression, inventory, item count, inventory name. You can go ahead and name it whatever you want, but in my case, I'm just gonna name it player inventory. Inventory. Make sure you remember this name and the way you spell it. The item name. This particular one. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. All right, we want to go to common expressions for all objects, variables, object variable. We want inventory slot, and the variable we created was the item name. Click that one. Oops. Oh wait, I have to do that. So type item name. So it's going to grab whatever name we store in this variable. Done, done, done. And that's how you get that one right there. So it's going to grab the number of items under player inventory from this inventory slot, and from this under this variable item name, it's going to get that number, and it's going to get that like how many items we have of this one item, and it's going to display it to the screen. Okay, so that's it for that part. Okay, so now let's go ahead and expand this one. All right, so basically what we have here, we have two different ways of doing things. The first way, we take this group right here. Let me show you. If we click right here, open the group, object groups. I created an object group called store objects. You rename that, and then you click right there, you open this panel, and I placed two objects in here. And the way you put objects in this group is you click right here and you select which object you want to put in this group. So in this group we have health and we have mana items. So what this is going to allow me to do is I can reference store objects to access these two items right here and their variables. Instead of having to create separate code for each and every item. Now, for this one, like if you have like objects like in this case a sword item right here, where you only want one of that item in your inventory at one time, then you can go ahead and do this. So we equip this, or not equip, but we add this to our inventory. But that's all we want in there, just that one item. So let's go ahead and jump into here. All right, so we want to check to see if our left mouse button was released and our cursor is touching our store object. And as you remember, our store object, we have two things in there. Okay, so if one of those things are if one of those things are being selected, it's going to recognize it as a store object. Okay, and then we come over here and now we want to modify a scene variable, and we want to do selected item and set that to, let's go ahead and delete this so I can show you how to get this right here. Okay, so we want to go to common expressions for all objects, variables, object variable. The object is, okay, these are all your objects, but we don't want an object, we want the group. So we type store, find store objects. So like once again, these are your regular objects. This is your group. The variable, we want to grab is name. So it's going to check to see if any of those objects that we placed in the store objects group has a variable called name. It's going to grab that name and it's going to set that name to this text. Okay, press OK. Let's go ahead and expand this one. Close right now. Okay, so then we do a sub event, and we're not going to add no actions, but we're going to do it for each object. Go up here again for each object. Then we're going to do conditions. The first condition, let's go ahead and check, double click on that. We want to compare the text of an object variable. Okay. So the first thing is, which object do you want to check? You want to check the inventory slot and then the item name variable. And you want to see if it equals to that selected item. As you can see, we set this variable to name. So what we want to do is we want to see if that name is equal to the inventory slot. So like I said, so this right here, basically what we're doing in this one, we're checking to see if there's already that item in one of the inventory slots. So if there is, we want to, instead of filling up all your inventory slots, we want to just add it to that one slot and increase that number. Okay, so we're checking to see if the item name of that inventory slot is equal to this scene variable's name. Okay, and then the second condition is we want to check to see if the selected item is that name or that variable is not empty. So once again, if you want to make sure, if you want to say not, then you go ahead and invert condition. So if the text of the scene variable selected item is equal to this, then this will be off. But if we want to check to see if it doesn't equal this or it's not empty, we want to make sure that invert condition is off. Okay, so since this is checking to see if we already have this item in our inventory, we don't need a condition, and then we jump down, we do another sub event, and this time we want to go ahead and come up here, do repeat. And you can do this one or two ways. You can do it like this. Click on here. You would type store objects, the group, dot variable, and in parentheses, you want to type that variable that we made for each store item called quantity. And so it's going to grab that value, which is 1, and it's going to repeat this one time. So it's going to add one one of those objects to our player inventory. Or you can do it like this. You can just put repeat one time. So I wanted to show you you can do it two different ways. You can either grab the variable that you created, or you can just manually enter just one right here, or 5, 10, 20, whatever how many objects you want to add to your inventory. So if you want to add 50 mana or 50 health to your inventory, you just put that right here. Okay, so once again, click on this. You would type store objects dot variable. Make sure this is a capital V. Your parentheses is right here, and that variable that we created in our store items called quantity. Okay, then now we want to add that store object or that item to our player inventory. So let's go ahead and click on this. So you want to go ahead and type add an item right there. Click on it, and then the first thing is you're going to see is the inventory name. Make sure you have the quotation marks, and then the name that you named your inventory, which is player inventory. And then you want to add, or you want the name of that item. Well, you want to go ahead. Let's go ahead and delete this. Okay, so item name, common expressions for all objects, the object variable, object. We want store object. That's the group, the variable, name, and that's it. So it's gonna, whatever you're touching, it's gonna grab that name if it's under this store object, and it's gonna grab that name and store it right here. So let's go ahead. Press OK. Okay, so now we do another sub event, and we want to take account of all slot text and link to inventory slots, which we done up here in inventory. And then we want to come down here. So basically what this is doing right here, this is going to update that slot text. That's all it's going to do. So let's click on this one right here. So we link those two objects, and now it's going to update that slot text in each inventory. So this particular one is going to update the number of items that we have in this one inventory slot. So let's go ahead and delete this. Show you how to get this value right here. So we select the object, slot text, we equal. We want the slot text that's linked to the inventory slot that this is linked to. Then we want to set that to this text. So we go to conversion, number greater text, expressions, inventory, item count. We want the name of the inventory, which is player inventory, item name, expression button, common expressions for all objects, object variable, object inventory slot, variable item name. Okay, hit done, and that's how we get this right here. Press OK. Okay. Oh, right here. And then we do one more sub event, and we want to set this selected item, this scene variable, back to empty. Press OK. Now that's for things that we want to have multiple items of. Let's pull this back up. Now we want to click back up here. You can actually copy this and then just edit it, and then, like I said, then paste it, or paste it then edit it, or you can just start again. Let's see, where is it? Okay. Now we want to do another sub event under this. We don't want a sub event under this one. We want it under this one right here. So like I said, you could copy this and then paste it down here, and then just modify it to where it has the one thing that you want. Okay, so this is going to check to see if you don't have any of the items, or have that item. So the first thing, you check to see if the item name of the inventory slot equals is blank, and then you want to check to see if the selected item is not blank, and then you come over here. Like I said, this time we are doing actions. Right here, you're not doing any actions. This one, you want to go ahead and modify it. Just modify the text of an object. So the object is going to be inventory slot. The variable is going to be item name. You want to set that item name to the name of the object that you're touching. I already showed you how to get this right here. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you want to change the animation of the inventory slot to the right object that you're selecting. So you want to select object inventory slot, and you want to grab that variable, the item name, and you want to grab that name, and you want to set that animation to that name. So as if you remember, we came over here to the inventory slot, edit object, and we set these animations to the animation names to like health, mana, and sword, and we kept it simple. And so that matches this right here. Oops, not that one. It matches this. So it's grabbing this name right here, which we set in item name. We set the item name to be that name right here, and we're taking that name and we're matching it to the animation name. So if that animation name is health and the item name is health, it's going to switch it to this animation name. Okay, and then once we do that, we come down here and we add that object to our inventory. Like I said, we're pretty much now we're just doing practically the same thing, except for we're not checking to see if there's that item in our inventory already. Okay, so like I said, we're just doing the same thing. Okay, so we close that. Now we can copy all that and do a sub event under the group, and like paste it underneath here, and we modify it to only do one item. So in this case, we're checking to see, okay, it starts here, and then it comes down. Or, I'm sorry, we're starting here, checking to see like the left mouse button is released, the cursor is on the sword item. Then we come here, we're setting the selected item to that sword item's name. we grab this variable name from sort item. Instead of this being store objects, the group, we came here and we go to common expression for all objects, the variable, object variable, the object, sword item, and then we put name. Okay. All right, and then, like I said, we just pretty much we follow the same instructions for these first two. We want to check to see if well, for this one, we want to make sure that the item name is equal to nothing, or it's blank, and that the selected item is not empty. And then the third item we want to check to make sure that that the player inventory does not have a sword. So, oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. We want to do it for each object, slot. We're checking all the slots again to see which one is empty. And if all three of these are true, we come over here. Now we want to set the variable, the item name, to this. We want to set that slot text to this, or I'm sorry, the inventory, the item name to this, which is the sort item, and we grab that variable called name, and so that name is called sword, and that's what this variable is going to equal. Okay, then we come back down here. We want to set that animation to we want to set that animation to the sword. So once again we're grabbing the name from the item name variable and matching it to the correct animation. And then we come back down here, and I already showed you this. We hit repeat, come up here, repeat, and it's going to ask us how many times we want to do it. In this case, we're just going to say one time, or you can come back up here or you can type that the sword dot variables, the parentheses, and quantity, that variable. Okay, and like I said, now it's practically we're just doing the exact same thing we did in this one. So we take into account all slot text linked to inventory slots. We set this text to we're updating that slot text to how many items we have. Like, so if we have 5 mana, and we click on that store object 5 times, it's going to automatically update this slot text, or this inventory item. So, and then the last thing, we want to set this back, the select item back to blank, and then that's it. So let's go ahead and check this out. Press play. The store is already open. If we click on the health, as you can see, it added 1 health. Click on it again, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing with mana. Now, if we click on the sword, as you see, it has 1. Click on it again, nothing. Because we set the limit to just 1. Now, I haven't set up the bow, but I wanted to show you that you can do the same thing with this. So you can go ahead and just copy. You can copy or this part right here, and just change it to bow item or gun or whatever item, and just change it in the right spots. See, like right here is the sword item. You would change that to bow. Wherever it says sword item, and then like right. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just those two spots, and that's it. And so now we have a store and we have an inventory system. So the next video, we're gonna do weapon, or I'll show you how to equip the weapons and switch weapons, and possibly we'll probably drop the weapons and or delete it out of the inventory. So for now, that is it. And I hope hopefully this helps you guys and you enjoyed this video. Hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.